You're listening to Healing Voices Project, where we share stories and the latest information from people who fight addiction every day. I'm Mike Torville, your host and author of Voices from the Fallen. Thank you for listening, for following, and most of all, for sharing with people you care about. Make your voice count too.
This is part 2 of Shawn Martin's story.
Yeah, I was like, is it anything like, Vicodin? like I had been taking when I was younger. He's like, oh, it's way better. But he told me, you have to shoot it. I'm only going to let you have some if you shoot it. Kind of a scumbag thing to say, right? I mean, either way you look at it, he's giving me poison. Mm-hmm. Pure poison. And I'll admit, I did like it. I liked it. I was very weary of it, though, because of my history with opiates. And I can say, like, honest hand to God, I've never woken up sick from any drugs. Even when my drinking was as bad as it got years later, I have never woken up sick. And I'm very grateful for that. Because I wouldn't.
Well, your Irishness comes in handy.
that must be what
sometime.
It is. Yeah.
All right, but I get it. Yeah.
Right. So yeah. Then I'm drinking, drugging, doing whatever. Managed to find some work. I'm working at a local pizza shop, and I meet a kid I used to go to high school with that I didn't really know him in high school, but we had a mutual friend, and he was looking for a roommate, and he had a place in Summers. It was kind of off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Didn't really have any neighbors, and it was like a duplex. His grandparents lived on the other side, but they never really bothered anyone. And I moved in there, and that kind of became a party house. I met a lot of people from the town of Enfield, and after being through the 12 steps, I'll admit I had a lot of resentments against that town as a whole, just because of the people that I had met especially. But now it's easy for me now to look back and understand that I had a serious role in my own self-destruction when it comes down to it.
You didn't know that at the time, but now you know.
Nope, didn't know that at the time. I don't know how much real self-discovery I was doing.
Yeah.
I ended up meeting a kid who introduces me to acid. I start doing that more and more often. Psychedelics, cocaine here and there, occasionally even crack.
And the heroin?
And the heroin was occasionally there too. The Enfield kids.
You had a real cocktail there, didn't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Quite the mix of different things. And I was drinking well and often, drinking at work. That became...
Where were you working?
I was at Geo's in Hamden then. He ended up firing me. I actually got fired from there twice. I worked there 2 separate occasions. Yeah. One time was for...
He gave you a chance.
He did.
Yeah,
No, Geo's a great man.
Right.
He gave me a chance. And the second time around, he caught me cracking a beer out back because I was just, I was stupid still. I thought I could get away with whatever, and I liked the rush of it. I've come to realize that I enjoy the rush of these things, or did. Not so much anymore, that's for sure. So yeah, I ended up living there on and off all the way to like 2021. At one point during the pandemic, I was living in Westfield at a buddy's house, and he was growing weed. There's all types of drugs floating around all the time, and that year I didn't feel like it was that bad, but the damage I was doing to my body, especially, even though my mental state was good, and my wallet, I was getting all this money from COVID, and I was not being smart with it at all. I should have bought a good vehicle early on. When I woke up with all this money in my bank account after waiting for unemployment for a while. And I squandered so many of my resources, honestly. And AA was not even a thought in my brain back then, And so then 2021 rolls around. I'm back at my buddy's house in Summers, living there. And I'm working at Bay Path. I'm drinking every day. Every day I go in there. I usually would have a buzz going in. I told myself, like, well, we don't drink before noon. One of those rules that everyone likes to, but to make them feel like they're not an alcoholic, you know. Even though by then I knew I definitely
Look at how good we're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
And I'm drinking maybe 7 or 8 nips. I get them on my break. I go up the road to the liquor store. It's always dangerous. It was always dangerous for me working near a liquor store, you know, back then.
Yeah.
And I didn't get fired from that job, luckily, but you know, I started to lose control of focus, reality, all that. 2021, I end up, you know, really pissing my roommate off and end up in a psych ward again. And that's when I really knew things had to change.
Go again back. I mean, to interrupt you, going back into the psych ward, was this voluntary this time? Who put you there?
That time was definitely not voluntary. My mother.
Your mother again. Okay.
Yeah.
So
my mother knew something was up. She came with somebody to the house.
Okay.
Yeah. I had lost touch with reality. You know,
Yeah.
When you're doing enough psychedelics and drinking every day, it's really easy for that to happen. You know, I thought for some reason that I was having a spiritual experience by taking all this LSD and drinking all the time, and I wasn't.
A little delusional, were you?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
I had no idea what true spiritualism was.
Yeah.
So I get a little stint of sobriety. I get out of the mental ward. I'm in a homeless shelter in Westfield, the Samaritan Inn. And I'm not in a good spot mentally still. I feel like my support system had left me, which, you know, can happen. Toxic support systems can disappear when you decide to get sober, especially.
As they should.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly. And I'm at this homeless shelter for like a month and a half maybe. I find a place in East Hampton, and I remember the day I was moving there, I decided to get a bottle again. And that was probably the most sobriety I'd put together in a while, and I just, you know, want to revert. I want to feel comfortable. And I drank that bottle. It was Pinnacle jalapeno, and I did not feel any better. I really didn't. I felt guilty. I felt like I was betraying the ones around me that loved me most and just wanted to see me healthy and happy.
And that was a new feeling.
Yeah.
Because you hadn't had that guilt before.
Nope.
Okay.
I hadn't.
So something was changing.
Yeah. I was starting to realize that something really needed to change. But unfortunately, you know, I get to East Hampton. I'm in this weird mindset still where I want to isolate and drink. And I'm just putting away like 2 pints of Smirnoff every day. My mother's like, "Are you looking for a job?" I had a vehicle at this point that my dad really helped fix up for me. It was like a 99 Maxima, and I just didn't have the motivation still. I don't know what was going on in my head. So I ended up getting sectioned after, you know, deciding I want to do a little more heroin again. And I got sectioned, was in Stony Brook for 45 days, and met some good people there that I still know in recovery. Got out, though, and I really should have had somebody sweep that room before I got out. And I ended up, I regret this time doing heroin almost more than any other. I shot up some and passed out. Woke up 2 hours later when I was supposed to go to an AA meeting with this guy who said he was going to be my sponsor that my mother had introduced me to, and I couldn't feel my whole right leg. I lost all feeling in my right leg. And
after waking up after a couple hours.
Yeah. I had this ringing in my ear. I could barely hear anything. I had this horrible pain right here, and I felt just like a shell. Like I didn't know what to do. I called 911. I went to Cooley and Dickinson. I couldn't really hear myself, so it was hard for me to communicate what was wrong with me. So they had me there for a night, and then they sent me back to the house, and I'm like, this isn't getting any better. This isn't clearing up. So I had to go back there, and they did all sorts of MRIs, different scans of my body, and they had no idea what was up with it. I still don't know to this day exactly what happened. I just knew I had nerve damage. I have a rod in this leg, so I can only assume that there's some weird chemical that relaxed my muscles enough where maybe this rod like pinched some nerves.
Okay.
I have no clue. I'm not a doctor, but all I know is that it didn't help with my drug use at all, because I'm like, oh my god, I can't even use like my leg properly anymore. That was one of the things I was most proud about. You know, I had messed up both these legs over the years being stupid, and now I just was practically handicapped. You know, I had to walk around with crutches for a while, and yeah, it was really rough. It was really rough those few months, and eventually I was so miserable that I decided to start calling up some of those old friends from Enfield and smoking crack. I started selling property to smoke crack, and that became more of my drug of choice for a while. Instead of that 2 pints of Smirnoff every day, became a gram of crack, whatever you get my hands on, you know. And eventually I moved out of that house in East Hampton into a crack house in Windsor Locks with this girl. I'm not going to say her name. I don't like to say her name. No. Not a good person particularly. I wasn't being very genuinely good either, though. At the time, I was being selfish. My family was doing nothing but trying to help me become a better person. I couldn't see it.
And you were resistant to it.
Yeah, I was resistant to it.
Yep.
I was being hedonistic. I just wanted pleasure over pain. You know, I didn't want to deal with these problems that I had, and it was a rough month or two in that crack house that eventually led back to the psych ward. And from there, I get out of there in a psych ward in Connecticut somewhere after, you know, a real rough time there, just smoking crack, seeing things that are borderline traumatizing. And I'm living at my mother's, and she gets me a sponsor who's a really good guy who knows the program. And he inspired me to really get sober. But yeah, I was on a number of medications at the time, and gabapentin was one of them. And I started abusing that because, you know, old habits die hard. And even though I wasn't drinking for the first month and a half, I was out of it. I was like nodding out on my ILP. I got a video call ILP, nodding out, barely participating, and I was going to meetings here and there with my first sponsor. And I as soon as my mother left, she left the house for a week. She set up cameras to make sure I didn't do anything crazy. I started really drinking again. Liquor store right down the road from where I grew up, calling my name. And I got really cocky about it, and she came back one day, and she knew something was up. So she called my first sponsor, Harvey, and he came to the house and said, "We're going to bring you to the Hope Center." I was really resistant then. I was truly resistant. This was end of February, beginning of March. It was around St. Patrick's Day, because I remember complaining to me like, "Mom, you're not going to let me miss corned beef, right?" You're not
It
gonna
was
miss
so important.
Yeah, it was that corned beef. Yeah. Luckily, the day after St. Patrick's Day, I went to the Hope Center, where you know, I had a rough time at first. I just it was the I don't know if it was the medication I was on or what, but I was tired all the time. I wasn't socializing a lot initially, and but I had a good roommate. I had a good roommate who I could talk to about a lot of things, and things starting to turn around more and more. I was there maybe a little less than a month, and then I went to an opportunity house where I had a great time there. You know, the people at BHN really know what they're doing, and but you know, for some reason this disease is cunning, baffling, powerful, and after about 90 days sober, they give me my first day to go out into the community. And in my head, I'm bouncing back and forth the idea of, you know, walking downtown. I know there's a liquor store there, and I'm like, can I even handle being near one still? Like, I haven't been around one in, you know, over 3 months. Mm-hmm. And so I end up walking downtown. It's like orbiting this liquor store, just like thinking about it.
Completely conflicted. Like, how can I?
Yeah. What am I going to go in there? And I remember walking into this place, and I felt like it was a scene from Needful Things, the Stephen King book, where, you know, the devil sells you something that will bring you all your wants and desires, but ultimately your destruction. Because they had all the alcohol behind the counter. You know, it's downtown Springfield. And I remember getting a bunch of nips, and I had called my mother, I didn't even tell her I was going to do it. It was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful summer day. It was like June 14th, 2022, roughly, June 13th, around then. And I felt it didn't do anything for me. And I'm really grateful it didn't.
But you called your mom.
Yeah, I had, though. I had called my mom. I should have told her, like, I was contemplating doing this, but I didn't.
You didn't call her before, you called her after.
I called her before.
Before.
Yeah,
okay,
but I didn't tell her I was thinking about getting nips or had the nips.
Gotcha.
You know?
All right. Yeah.
So this is like some form of divine intervention or something. The next day, I wake up. They're like, "All right, everybody in the meeting room there, we're gonna drug test everyone." I'm like, really? I had just found out that they can find alcohol in drug tests nowadays. Like, so I'm like, well, I'm gonna get caught for sure. So I might as well drink one more time. And I ended up drinking that day. I remember being in the Springfield Library on State, just chugging a whole Mike's Harder can, tall boy. And I remember it still not having the desired effect, ultimately. And I went back to the house. I just felt guilty. I was looking at anyone in the house's face when you're messed up and they're not. It's just, you feel like you could be hurting their sobriety. That's why it used to drive me nuts when I heard anyone was getting high in or drunk in any halfway house or sober house I've been in, because you're jeopardizing the lives of other people.
Of course, it's having an impact on everybody around you.
Yeah, at the end of the day. So I initially didn't think I was going to get caught, because I'm like, I thought they would have brought me in the office like immediately. The weekend goes by. Monday rolls around. Desiree's like, you got to come see me. I'm like, oh boy. And she tells me, like, Shawn, there's a lot of alcohol in your urine. I'm like, well, I have this mouthwash. It's got alcohol. Me still trying to, cut angles as alcohol.
You expected them to say, "Oh, all right then."
Yeah,
that must be what it is.
That must be what it is. Yeah,
I'm so convinced.
She's like, no, Shawn, it's not.
Like the first time they've ever heard that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You don't bullshit a bullshitter, as they
Right.
say. And she tells me, you got two options. You can either leave or you can go to the Hope Center for 2 weeks. We'll hold your bed. And I had like a bit of a small anxiety attack thinking about this, because I'm like, I hate the Hope Center. This place that had helped me get sober, I'm holding a resentment against, because they took away TV privileges at one time of year, something stupid, just not understanding how grateful I should have been for the opportunities they presented to me. And I decided to go back to the Hope Center. I'm grateful I did. I saw some more people that I know today in recovery that are doing well. And I come back to the op house, and there's a drastic change in my mentality towards everything. My sober date is June 17th of 2022, and I have not picked up a drink or a drug since then.
You're a year and 5 days in now.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. And it's from a combination of a lot of things. Having a strong support system where people who are like-minded as you are trying to just better themselves and want to see others do well. Surrounding yourself with them. The 12 steps. I ended up getting a new sponsor. And I have nothing against my old sponsor. He knows the program well. He's actually going to be speaking for me at my coin ceremony next week. He's a great guy. But I need someone who can make a little more time for me. And I ended up finding a buddy. I can honestly call him my friend Timmy. And he started bringing me through the steps when I was at the Opportunity House. I was there from June to December. And I'll say that I didn't drag my feet as much on step 4 as some people do. I took at least like 3 or 4 months, I want to say. But I think one was the one that a lot of people struggle with the most and was hard for me to accept, is that I have no control over that first drink. I'm powerless over that first drink or drug. I've seen that in a few triggering moments in the last year. I went to a wedding in Vermont that my cousin Drew, and they don't really drink I don't know if it's all Vermont is like this, but they don't really drink the same way a lot of people in Massachusetts drink. There was no liquor at this wedding. I think I seen a few people drinking White Claws here and there, but I wasn't very triggered by any of it, though. I remember that. The most triggering moment I probably had in the last year was I got a ride from. I currently work at Big Y, World Class Market, and I work next to this guy who makes sushi, right? And he gave me a ride home one day, and I don't know if I've explained to him. He knows I'm sober, so I still wonder why he did this. But he stopped at the liquor store. Got a bottle of Jaeger, cracked it open, and drank it in front of me. And the smell of it alone was just like the most triggering thing I've experienced in the last year, I'll admit. And I'm just grateful that I have a sponsor. I've been through all 12 steps now, and I can immediately address those feelings and emotions. Like, okay, what would you even having a sip of that do? How many people would you disappoint? That's what I think about every time I meet somebody new in recovery. They say you're supposed to do it for yourselves, but when I think of how many people I can let down by going back to what I was doing, that makes it really easy for me to stay sober, honestly. And every new person, every new phone number I get, builds upon that foundation I have in sobriety. And that's what I've been trying to do now more than ever, is reaching out to more and more people in the rooms. And I'd like to find somebody to sponsor as well. I always raise my hand now. Everything's been coming along real nicely. I'm a lead resident over at Michael's right now, so I got to keep other people accounted for.
So as a lead resident, what does that mean?
That means so usually 2 nights out of the week, I have to make sure everyone's home by their curfew, and everyone has the same curfew. I had to make sure, last night, I had to make sure chores were done thoroughly. We try to keep the house very clean. That's just an important tenet of sobriety. Just in all your affairs, you're supposed to just, be tidy one way or the other. And we also we just try to check in with everyone to one degree or another and make sure they're doing all right, make sure they're getting a sponsor, they're staying clean in all facets. And it's really fulfilling. It's really fulfilling.
You're having a different impact on those people than you did years ago.
Yeah.
And
that's for sure.
That's a better feeling, right?
Yeah. It's a great feeling.
Guilt than you experienced.
Yeah. And I've spent the last 7 or 8 holidays, it feels like now, with my family. There's been a number of them in the last year. I spent Memorial Day with my family, Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas.
And your relationship with your mom is
excellent now.
Great.
Excellent.
That's
now.
Awesome, yeah.
And I didn't really talk about I have a sister as well. Yeah. And she didn't talk to me for quite some time, and I always understood why, because I wasn't doing anything to better myself. My sister was a professional lacrosse athlete for 3 years. She has the single game scoring record at University of Albany lacrosse, and has always just done the right thing. Every time she would try to drink, she usually got in trouble early on and learned her lessons. Probably learned a lot of them vicariously through me as well. And that's probably one of the only things I can be grateful about my use towards her.
You take your experience not only with your family, but the people at Michael's house and other people you encounter, to hopefully have them learn from what you're having. That's part of what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. Exactly. So
Well, you as a young man in college, you had everything going for you. You had athletics, school, but it all just went sour due to one thing.
Yes. It was very slow and gradual, though.
Yeah.
I'll admit. I sometimes wonder if maybe it was much more serious early on. I would have woken up to the idea of going to meetings and getting, and most importantly, staying sober.
Well, yeah. Well, a lot of people can learn from you.
Yeah.
And I think certainly if people want to get in touch with Michael's house, and what is there? It's Michael J. Diaz.
Michael J. Diaz. Yep.
Yeah. It's MJ Diaz.
Yeah.
MDS
Foundation.
Foundation.org.
Yeah, I believe it's
Yeah.
.org. Yeah, I believe that's the website. But yeah, they've done tremendous things for me since I got there in December. You know, Adam's a great guy. Adam and John. You
Yeah.
know, they run the house excellently, and I have nothing but good things to say about those folks. They've been in recovery a while and helped open many doors for me.
Yep. And Adam's been on our program a couple times, actually.
Yeah, I
And
did.
He's great.
Yeah. I've seen some of his videos. Yeah.
It's great having you too. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. In fact,
Thank you.
I think a lot of people can learn from you. And again, if anybody's interested, Michael J. Diaz House, you can look up the Michael J. Diaz Foundation, MJ
Diaz Foundation.
Foundation.org.
Yeah.
Shawn, it was great.
All right,
having you.
thank you, Mike.
I appreciate it. Everything you've said, everything you've done, and I congratulate you.
Thank
so,
you. I appreciate
all right.
it. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Yeah, and thanks everybody. See you soon. All right.